All right, Seth Ruhling, it is a pleasure to have you on the Singletrack podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing good, doing good. Thanks for having me on. Pretty stoked to be on this podcast.
Well, it's an honor to have you here. I was just saying offline, I've been waiting for the perfect moment to get you on, and I think wrapping up the 2023 season is the perfect place to do it. We're catching you 2 days post JFK. What's the feeling right now?
I'm sore. I am so sore right now. It's kind of funny. Like, you think like I've done enough of these ultras where it's like I'm used to it. This one hit hard. I feel like, yeah, very. That's probably like the most like extreme feeling right now is like I can't hardly move still. But other than that, very excited, very happy to like, yeah, I don't know, come off a good JFK. Like, I don't know. That race is like it's super fun. It's where I kind of started in sort of the elite side of the sport, so it's kind of nice to go back and win. And yeah, like after not really getting too many wins or any wins in like 18 months or so, it's kind of nice to win something.
Well, just based on what I saw on Strava, you clearly, quote unquote, went for it this time around. And I guess the first question I have is like, when you think about all the races you line up for, does every race have a different strategy, or is it always the same thing? And no matter what you're going, like Zach Miller style, and it's to the well. And this is just a
Uh,
unique scenario where you're sore for whatever reason.
yeah, you'd think I think I have a different strategy each race. But I think in reality, when the gun goes off, I end up going out pretty hard. Like I don't know, CCC, I set the fastest time up the first climb ever, which was probably not my best choice. So this race to be like, yeah, I was going for it was like maybe like uh maybe I was putting a label on the way that I usually end up racing, but um yeah, I'd say like I don't know. I do better if I just send it because uh I don't know. These ultras get really hard towards the end, no matter how fast you're going. Like you could walk 5 hours and be like, "This is the hardest thing I've ever done," or you could like go as hard as you can for 5 hours, and it's still the hardest thing you've ever done. You just, you know, you win instead of I don't know. I don't know what the alternative is, but um, yeah, I was definitely going for it. Definitely trying to go for the course record, which, to be honest, I didn't. I wasn't. I thought I could do. Like I was like I didn't know what that would be like. Like when Hayden ran 5:18, like it's hard to know. It's hard to know like what that's gonna feel like until you
Hmm.
give it a try. Um, it's a lot faster than I thought it was. So I definitely tried to go for it, but if I was being honest with myself before, I was pretty 50-50 on whether I could actually hold that pace.
Well, now that we're 2 days post race, does Saturday's performance feel like a stepping stone towards that course record, or do you feel like you've sort of brushed up against your limits? How are you currently processing it?
I mean, I definitely don't think I brushed up against my limits. Like I think like the the way I ran it like could still be tailored. Like I still went out too hard per usual. I was like 2.5 minutes faster off the AT than when Hayden ran it. You know, I think still 2.5 minutes faster than like
Yeah.
every other person who's kind of done the race and ran a fast time. So, maybe I could hold back there. I don't know. I mean, I think I've gotten out of that race what I want to for now. I mean, it's 2 days after. I don't feel like the deep desire to go back and try to go under 5:18. Um, it's just hard. Like I don't because I've thought about it a little. Like where would I build time? Where could I have like conserved? How could I have done things differently? And it's like I just don't know. I just don't know. Like that pace on the towpath that you have to hold, like I think I had to hold like 5:55 pace
Yeah.
off the towpath, which like this is like the most frustrating thing about that race is like objectively you're like that pace is not too fast. Like in training do that pace like often or easily, and it's even like altitude adjusted. So it's like, that's like, I don't know, 6:05 pace or something. And then you get in the race and it's like, it feels good, feels good, feels good, feels good. And then like all of a sudden you're like, I think I'm going a little slower. And you look down, it's like 7:30 pace.
Yeah.
So it kind of creeps up, like the fatigue kind of creeps up pretty fast at that race. So I don't know. I think I've kind of, I don't have a huge desire to go back for the course record yet. But I also don't think I got like everything I could have gotten out of, I could get. Like, I don't think I've like reached my potential at that race, but I don't know. I say that, and then probably next month I'll be like, oh, maybe I should go back to JFK. I don't know. It's hard to know.
So you were 2 minutes up after the AT section. Do you know off the top of your head what Hayden did on that towpath section, or where he ended up sort of making up time in sort of like a virtual race against you two?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually on course record, which is kind of embarrassing. I was on course record pace, like actually like a decent bit, a few minutes under, maybe 4 minutes under, at mile 33.
Okay.
So I just died a lot harder than he did. I mean, everybody dies a little. Like even Hayden like died, you know, like he like slowed down a little the last maybe 10 miles, but it was like I slowed down by like a minute and he slowed down by like 20 seconds a mile, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that over like 10 miles kind of yeah, adds up, or 17 miles for me adds up. So I think that's where it was. I don't know off the top of my head exactly what his splits were, but I mean, I ran the year that I won it in 2019. I ran 10 minutes slower. The last 8 miles, I ran faster that year than I did this year.
Interesting. Okay. I don't know if you saw this maybe a week ago, but at Tunnel Hill, Charlie Lawrence set the new 50-mile world record. I know it's a totally separate race, separate conditions, but in any way, shape, or form, did his performance there give you any courage or like just amplification heading into JFK?
I thought about it a little bit. I mean, Charlie's like, he's so good. He's such a good road runner, and I think like, you know, I think for me, like, I'm not as good of a road runner as he is. So it was like a little bit like, well, his, I don't know what he ran, like 5:47 pace is probably like my, you know, 6:07 pace, like effort wise. So it's like I did think about that, and I was like, well, if he can do that, like maybe I can do this. And then I think that's where like I realized that JFK, even though it's largely a road race, is a totally different ball game than Tunnel Hill, for instance. Like I mentioned this in one of the write-ups, how like people often think of JFK as just this like really fast race, and it is, you know, compared to like UTMB or any other trail race that exists. But the reality is like that trail section is in and of itself like pretty beefy. It's technical, it's hard, like it's hilly, it's undulating. You don't get that much vert, but you get this like yeah, like I don't know, unaccounted for vert, what we always call it, is like where you're going up and down little hills, but your watch doesn't give you any more feet of vert. So yeah, I think that's where it's like, yeah, I mean, Charlie would still probably kick my butt at JFK, but I think it's like thinking of him doing that at Tunnel Hill and then thinking of what I can do. I'm like, I feel like it's just two totally different races to compare. But yeah, that was crazy what Charlie did.
I want to get more into like the race report in a second, but I'm reminded because when you said, you know, you were thinking big for this race, you were going to go for the course record. I was talking, I think it was either with Drew, maybe it was Adam Mary, it could have even been Matt Daniels, but we were sort of talking about sort of your Boulder Boys contingent. And one of them was just kind of like giving sort of like a flyby description of what each of you guys brings to the table. And it might have been Adam who was like, with Seth, it's just all about fearlessness and confidence in every single start line. Was that an accurate description? Like if someone was to sort of point you out, those would be your traits and part of what makes you great in this sport?
I hope so. Yeah, I think so. I guess like I never, and I think this maybe comes from the way you have to race triathlon a little bit. from sort of my background. Like I think you have to go for it. Like you're I don't know, like I guess like I never got into the sport thinking like, oh, like I need to be 30 minutes back from, or like, 10 minutes back from the leader and maybe I'll win. It's like, no, like I thought the point of this thing was to like try to go win the race, you know? So I think, uh, yeah, I'd like to think like that's kind of my mentality. Like every race is like, even if I'm like, ooh, it's a long shot to like take the win, it's like, well, I gotta go try. Like, I don't know, I didn't fly all the way here and train all those miles to like shoot for fifth, or something. Or yeah, so it's, um, but you know, it doesn't always work out. Had my fair share of DNFs. Uh, been sitting on the side of the trail a few times. So, yeah, no, I think I'd like to think that's the way. You know, if Adam says it, that's the way I am, then that's probably true.
I mean, I think that's a really interesting description when you think, like you said, in the trial world, there's maybe more risk and reward that's valued. In ultra, there's more conservatism and running a quote unquote smart race. Have you explored that at all and figured out where the source of that comes from? Is it just people don't have necessarily experience in like a fully developed or more fully developed sport like tri, or where does that other attitude come from in your opinion?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, that's hard to say because I don't want to say it's like I don't want to say it's like fear. Like for me, it would be fear. Like for me, if I were to go out super conservative, it'd be the fear of like bonking or like, you know, like failing or like being like, you know, for instance, like leading CCC and then like getting just my doors blown off by Jian Shin and John Albin and everybody else in front of me. You know, like that's, but to me, it's like, you know, I'd rather like see what like that looks like than like never know.
Yeah.
But to be said, that to be said, like there's people that go out conservative and like it pays off. I mean, it's probably half the successful trail runners go out like really conservative and end up winning things or making names for themselves. I mean, yeah. So I'd say for me, like fear maybe. I think some of it also is like, yeah, like I think ultra, there's this aspect of like not only do you have to worry about your position, but you have to worry about like even just finishing the race. Where like triathlon or other maybe a little, you know, more developed sports, there's an aspect of like I'm competing against these guys, like these people. You see it in marathoning all the time. Like you see people, they go out at the pace. Like
Yeah.
maybe it's too hot. Everybody knows it's too hot for, you know, whatever athlete it is, and like they try to stick it in there and then maybe they drop out. But it's like their whole goal is like how can I just compete with the people I'm with rather than like I got to get to the finish line, um, which you know, little harder in trail running because the races are long and there is something more respectable about finishing,
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
maybe like marathoning or something else. But yeah, I really think I view the sport as a competition between people,
Mm,
a little more than I feel it's a competition between the distance.
mm.
And that has burned me at times, and I think also at times it's worked in my favor. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer.
No,
I
that's a
think
great answer.
there's more than one way to do something, I guess.
I mean, and again, this is just as an observer. Maybe it's burned you, but it doesn't seem like it's traumatized you. Like it seems like with each race, you're able to go back out and maintain that same mentality, as opposed to just like having taken so many arrows that you're a totally different runner and you're more conservative. So talk about that too. Like how are you even in those races where you got to sit on the side of the trail and either walk
Yeah,
in it or call it a day? It doesn't seem like those like fundamentally change your strategy, which I think is not always the case with other runners.
yeah. Well, like Finn, have you ever golfed?
Yeah, I'm a terrible golfer, but I
Yeah.
try.
Okay. Right. So like to me it's like golf or maybe like gambling. Like even if you're decently good at golf, I'm terrible at golf. If you're decently good at golf, you like I don't know, shank it 10 times, but you nail it. You get that shot, hits the green, you're like 2 feet from the hole every once in a while, and you're like, all right, like I gotta come back for that. And so I think for me, that's been the case with the way I've raced is like like every once in a while, like, I mean, I might like sit on a rock or like DNF or like just get my doors blown off in the last few miles, but like every few races it works out and I end up winning or setting a fast time or winning by a lot. And it's like just enough positive feedback that I'm like, okay, like this isn't terrible. With that said, like starting to get into sort of the bigger, longer 10+ hour races. Probably do have to dial it a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. Just enough positive reinforcement to keep me trying to make mistakes, I guess.
The golf analogy is really good. The one that just came to mind for me is baseball, where the absolute best hitters in baseball are still making an out or striking out 7 out of 10 times. Like the very best hitters in Major League Baseball have a 300 average. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like in a sense, at every at bat, they're effectively going for it as well. And you know, of all the athletes out there, they deal with failure even in game way more than they deal with success, which is interesting.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that's, I don't know, maybe like part of what can make a really good athlete. And I think part of what can make the sport very interesting is like having people give it their all, and sometimes it works, sometimes you fail, and it's like you just got to keep sending it, keep trying.
You know, you were saying earlier about JFK that there are parts of this race that might not that might confuse onlookers. Like, yeah, it's not UTMB, but there is like hidden vert, and there are certain challenges and just ways you need to approach the race. What do you personally see as the crux of this course, or the part of the course where just a lot is on the line and it's sort of going to make or break your day?
Oh man, I mean, so that's like there's two cruxes, and my view on the race, there's two cruxes, and it depends on what kind of runner you are. If you're used to smooth trail, not used to East Coast running, maybe you're a road runner. We've seen guys like super fast marathoners try that course. That trail section is brutal. Actually, like this year, I made my gap on the trail. Like I'm from the East Coast, so I was kind of I'd like to think I'm good at that kind of terrain. And so I was able to make gaps on not on the climbs, not on the flats, but on the descents of the AT. And I think that's a crux for maybe road runners. We've seen two 10 marathoners show up there and like come off the trail 20 minutes behind a trail runner. But then I think for me, the crux, and for probably a lot of trail runners that go into this, is the crux is like running the same step for 35 miles, the exact same step every time. It has to be fast, has to be quick. You're going for it. Like there was a point where I'm just like, I am running so hard, like, and I'm just hoping to hold on to this, and my calves are hurting. Like, it's definitely a race where like you don't, or at least for me, like I don't bonk in the way that like, oh, I'm out of energy, like I'm underfueled or something. I bonk like my legs are starting to tie up. Like it's like running like an 800 or like a mile, and like your legs tie up the last 100 meters, but instead of 100 meters, it's like your legs are in the process of tying up for like 10 miles. It's like the slowest death like ever. So yeah, I think that the crux of it is just like durability for me, for a lot of trail runners, I imagine, is like durability on the flats. Like we just don't train, and I don't think anybody trains like this, but maybe somebody does. Nobody goes and runs 3-4 hours on flat roads every weekend. You'd be running like 35-40 mile long runs every weekend. Be kind of crazy. So it's just hard. It's to me, it's just a race. Like it's a race that you can train for, but the race itself is something that like it's very hard to train that stimulus. I don't know. Yeah, it's brutal. It's to me, it's way harder than like CCC or any other. Actually, I got done with this year and I was like, this is the hardest race, and I forgot it was this hard. I don't know.
Well, what is your training? Like, what are some of the focal points of your training playbook for this race? Like when it's, August or September, you're rolling off CCC. What does like a given week look like for you? What are you making sure to do from like a specificity standpoint?
Yeah. I'm a pretty fragile human. My bones are made of porcelain. So I can't do the training I maybe wish I could, but yeah, to me it's just like the basics, like making sure you're doing long runs. And for me, I can't go do 3 hours on the flats every weekend. I'll get injured. So I do add trails. Try to just get like time on feet on trails. But then just a lot of like, honestly, same stuff you go see, like maybe you would find like in the, I don't know, I actually do copy a lot of my training from the OAC group, the On Athletic Club.
Yeah.
Just like,
So
yeah,
Dathan's
basic
your
like,
coach.
yeah, by proxy of Joe Klicker's Strava. Yeah, just like, just threshold work, right? Like, 4 by 2 mile threshold, 10 mile threshold stuff, like just dealing in sort of like that as far as intensity, trying to get mileage. And for me, I'm pretty fragile, so I end up cycling more than I probably should for a race like that. But yeah, I just don't think, I think I've gotten to the point in my training where, and I hope this is true, and I could be wrong because I could easily revert to like some immature things that I used to do, but like I've gotten to the point where it's like it's better to be safe and just train the, threshold, do the things you need to do to get fit and to show up to the start line, and maybe yeah, don't try any like superhero workouts. Like I don't think, like I ran well below like what I used to run in workouts for this race, and I think it actually benefited me. Like I felt really recovered and was able to do more volume at certain intensities than like historically I would have, because I would have tried too hard to make the numbers look good or to boost my own confidence or something.
You mentioned the OAC group, which is cool. Shout out Coffee Club, by the way. But are there, but like sort of more on sort of that inspirational front, are there any people in the trail world or over in the road world that you try to emulate in your training at all besides OAC?
Oh, I mean, yeah, Coffee Club guys, like, yeah, catch me listening to that podcast every Thursday. I mean, to be honest, like it's just like it's so easy here in Boulder to be inspired. Like, and for different reasons. Like obviously, like I'm inspired by OAC for the like the running they do, track, fast running. I'm inspired like in the opposite sort of spectrum by like Jack Kunsel for like the crazy stuff he does.
Yeah.
And like just like it's kind of like accomplishing the same thing just in like a different, like in a vertical plane instead of a horizontal plane. And then like I don't know, yeah, like I find so much inspiration from the Boulder, the boys I train with, Drew, Matt, Adam, like in different times, like those guys, and obviously like Zach Miller, one of my teammates, good friend. Like I think he lately has really inspired me, the way he raced UTMB and the way he talks about training. It's really yeah, it's really inspiring. So I feel like it's interesting because I think when I was younger, I used to really look up to and aspire to be people that maybe I didn't know or never could meet. And then now it's like all my like, biggest role models are like people that I see or meet or talk to on a regular basis, which is kind of nice. It's kind of nice, actually.
I want to come back to the training environment in a minute, especially the Boulder Boys stuff, but a couple more questions about JFK. I think I heard you say earlier that you sort of put an initial gap on the rest of the field in the AT section. I'm guessing that was like Callum and Ryan, maybe Jared as well. Were you running alone in isolation for the vast majority of this race? And if so, what was that experience like?
Yeah, so actually I wasn't alone until the descent off the AT trail.
Okay.
I actually was with guys. They were kind of, I was either behind them for maybe the first 8 miles and I was in front just because I was taking the downhills maybe a little bit more recklessly. Or I felt I was in control, but it's kind of slippery, wet rock. I built a bit of a gap. There's like a nice like 1,000-foot descent. I actually don't know how many feet it is. Some number in the thousands of feet descent down off the trail, and that's when I built the gap on Callum. Did a little shoe swap and got stuck behind a train, and then got on the towpath, and he was pretty close behind me, and I thought he was probably right behind me for like till like mile 25. I don't really know. There was a point at mile 30 I looked back and thought I saw somebody, and in hindsight I think it was like a tree or something. But I did not feel like I was running in isolation until I got off the towpath and onto the road. That's when like I realized, when like Mike Spindler, the director, he drove his car behind me and he wasn't giving me time gaps, which I feel like if he gave me time gaps, it would mean that I was closely followed. Yeah, that's when I actually felt like I was running alone. So to be honest, like I was kind of running scared. Like there was a very good moment where I knew I was slowing down and I thought somebody was right behind me, and I was just like, oh no. Like I don't know, it could have been like Rajpal. I forgot his last name. He's from Denver. He's super fast.
He ran the Javelin 100K.
Yeah, Javelin 100K. Got second at Tunnel Hill, I think, 50.
Yeah.
Super fast dude, and I was like, oh, I'm just done. Like he's gonna pass me, but I didn't, I didn't realize I had a bigger gap. It's hard on that towpath. You think you can see for a long ways, and you can, but what looks like a person is probably a tree.
Do you like being chased, or do you like being the one that is sort of in pursuit?
I don't like either. Oh man, I set myself up to be chased too much. I don't like that, and I don't like chasing. I like running with people and knowing where everybody is. And so I think that's actually maybe a huge part to why my strategy is going out somewhat hard, is like if you're in first, you know where everybody is. If you let a gap go, you're like, I could pass somebody. Maybe I'm in 10th or 5th or 3rd, or I don't know. So that is the weird thing about trails. When I first got into it, it was like you start racing and you're like, I don't know what's happening. Like I don't know where anybody is, like unless you're getting time gaps, and the time gaps, like depending on the race, come every 3 hours or something. Yeah, I don't like either. I would rather be out front with a huge lead and just jogging, both scare me quite a bit.
Maybe a little bit of history here too, but like you won JFK back in 2019, and that seemed to be sort of your big splash debut on the competitive ultra scene. I think you had done some smaller stuff before that, but this was like the marquee one. What do you remember about that day, and I guess what it meant to you to kind of put you on this path?
It was huge. Like I think at the time I didn't realize like that race was that big of a deal. Like I knew it was a big race. I knew Jam had gone and done it. Like I wasn't really in the trail running scene as far as like keeping up with who's who and who's won what race. And like I knew who Jim was. I knew who Zach was, knew who Courtney was, but like probably about it, And so when I won it in 2019, I just remember Mike Spindler, like at the awards that night, was like, this is going to change your life. Like you're going to have, brands talking to you. Like, and I was like, okay, whatever. Like if you know Mike Spindler, like he loves that race. Like, to him, it's like it's like UTMB what, like JFK is it, And so talking to, so he says that and I'm just like, whatever. And then like kind of that night, like sure enough, like I was put in contact with the North Face, and it was like, oh, like I had never really thought like, oh, I could be a pro trail runner. Like that was never something. Even going to JFK, I was like, I'm in nursing school. Like I'm just doing this because triathlon was too much to train for. And then after that, I was like, oh, like this is what I'm doing now. Like I'm doing trail running. So yeah, it's completely changed the trajectory of like what I'm doing. Like I probably would be doing trail races had I not won that race. But it'd probably be like an even mix of like trail racing and mountain biking and road, like crit racing and all kinds of random racing that I can think of doing because I just like racing. But yeah, now it's like it's kind of my job, so it's kind of fun. Yeah, I would have never guessed like I'd be doing this and getting paid to jog around mountains.
So at the time, it wasn't part of this master plan to sort of make this a professional thing. It was picking out a local, somewhat regional race and finding interest in it, and the cards kind of falling into place.
Yeah, I mean, it was a backup. Like I had failed as, in my attempt to be a pro triathlete. If you consider like me and being in college running track, like I'd failed as like wanting to be a professional track runner. So it was kind of like I'd failed at these other things. So it's kind of like now I'm just like I was kind of like, okay with the fact that I was just gonna be like a working person and doing sport because I love it. And then I won, and then now here we are on a podcast.
What does it mean to fail at sort of a pro triathlon career? Like, is it taking X number of shots on goal and realizing I'm not going to get to where I want to be? Or yes, talk about that.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was, so for me, it was like I wanted to be a professional triathlete. I was training for it pretty hard. Triathlon's a little confusing. There's two sort of major types of racing: draft legal, which is in the Olympics, ITU triathlon, which is what I really wanted to do, but I wasn't good at swimming, so I kind of was like, okay, I'll do the long course stuff where the swim is a smaller percentage of the distance. And yeah, it's just like, yeah, I guess for me, failing was like I finally achieved the goal of getting my pro license. So in triathlon, you have to get a license from your federation. It's like kind of like a federation-based sport. So you get from USA Triathlon like a card that says you're like a professional triathlete, and you can race in pro category races for prize money, all of this. And so I finally got that, and it just was like once I got it, I was like, I'm just not gonna like there was no way. I mean, I was probably a little impatient, like maybe if I had given it a couple years. I think like there's just no way I was gonna like be able to compete with the guys who were doing it full time as their career and who had a good swim background, and maybe had actually gone through the junior system and built up through the system. So to me, failing was just like, I'm not gonna succeed here. So nor was I actually like really having fun with it anymore, which
How come?
is probably like it's stressful. Yeah, I mean, triathlon's I think fun, or for me it was fun in theory because it's like I love cycling, I love running. I didn't want to give either of those up, but I had to add this sport that I hated, which was swimming. And everything about swimming I didn't like. I was bad at it, which probably didn't help. But it was just stressful. It was like, you go for a 20-mile run, it's like you're kind of done for the day. Like unless you're like Cam Levins or something and have two more runs in the day, like you're just done. And so for me, it was like I'd go for a 2-hour bike ride or a 3-hour bike ride, and it's like, okay, like I probably have a swim and a run still, and I have to do my schoolwork, and I have to go to the hospital to do clinicals or whatever because I was in nursing school at the time. It's like I just can't do, and I got to sleep.
Yeah.
And I got to eat still. Like, oh, it was too much. So I just wasn't having fun. And actually, like, I told my triathlon coach, I was like, I'm just not having fun. He was like, yeah, just go like do what you want. And I did. I signed up for a mountain bike race and a trail race. One was like mountain bike race was one weekend, trail race was the next weekend. And I went to the mountain bike race and I got like ninth. And then I went to the trail race and I won. And then I just kept doing trail races the rest of that year. And that was actually that was in May, before I won JFK in 2019.
Has trail running always been fun for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I used to in high school, I went to like a small private school, but it was located we had 30 miles of trails just like right from the school. And so yeah, for cross country training, we just go run trails and it was like yeah, it was like play, right? Compared to like doing track workouts or jogging around grass fields. Um, yeah.
I guess maybe one more question about JFK, and then I want to sort of talk about the whole entire 2023 season at
Mhm.
large. But was coming back this time around sort of like revisiting the beginning of your career? Was it purely about going for a course record? What was like the overall overarching motivation to come back?
Yeah, well, yeah, so the overarching motivation was to come back was Adam and Matt were supposed to race.
Oh,
Um,
why didn't
so
Adam
it
race?
um that's probably a question for him, but I think he's like he did the right thing. Like he needed more training. He for him it was a good move. Job change, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
You know, he
yeah,
has a
yeah.
kid, like just needed it would have been a forced he would have had to push it and it wouldn't have been fun. Um that's why he didn't race. Um but so yeah, that was kind of why I wanted to go. And then it wasn't until after I signed up that I was like, oh yeah, like the course record, like this time, like I want to run fast. Um I mean shoot, like I love JFK. That's one of the few trail races that gets mentioned on letsrun.com. Like I'm all in for it, you know?
That's a
Um
great point about the Let's Run acknowledgement. That's awesome.
yeah. So yeah, I think time was cool, but just going back and doing a race and like having done one, it was also a good measuring tool. Like I'd done it once before and not often. I actually don't think I've ever gone back to a trail race that I've won since being a pro. And um, it was nice to have like to see progress. Like I ran faster than I did last time, like felt better. So
Mm.
it was good. Yeah.
A part of me wonders how much faster you would have run if you had Matt and Adam in the race, and just knowing, what Adam is capable of in 2023, Matt just being this naturally talented runner. Like, would you guys have pulled each other, even below 5:28, and would you have been inching closer to that course record?
Oh, I think so. I mean, just standing behind or running behind Matt, having him block the wind for me would have been would have been a few minutes. Yeah, I it would have pushed me for sure because Adam, last time I raced him, he rolled me up with a mile to go um, at Chuckanut. So I had a little bit of yeah. If he would have been there, I would have had a chip on my shoulder not to let that happen again. Um, but yeah, I think we would have gone quite a bit faster. I mean, I don't know.
Before we talk about 2023, I think we have to acknowledge one race from 2022, and that was the Maxi race over
Mhm.
in Europe. And you won, but you beat Orleans in the process. And I feel like we can talk about Orleans on a first name basis now because he's won Hard Rock. He's more in
Yeah,
the American trail running consciousness, but he's one of the very, very, very best in the world. Um, Talk about that day and what it meant to beat one of the absolute greats in the sport. Because that's, I mean, I think most Americans will not appreciate that race, and maybe not even appreciate who you beat. But like he's kind of on the level of Killian and Francois and Jim. So yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that.
yeah. So I didn't know that at the time. Um, which worked. Um, worked for my favor because I probably would have been a little more respectful in how I ran. But yeah, no, I mean it was cool. Like that was my first race in Europe, and I knew I could be really good at mountain races. Like I'm a smaller figure. Like I ride bikes a lot. I go uphill pretty well. I can go downhill fine. So I was kind of like, I think this is like a style of race I can do. And then I went over there and I raced how like I always race. I went out really hard and I was trying to drag them along because I was like, maybe if I'm making a mistake, I can make them also be making a mistake. Um, and it ended up working out. Like I didn't realize at the time how good Aurelian was. Like I knew he was the favorite. I knew he was from Annecy, France, which is where the race was. And I think it was that sort of naivety that like
Mm.
helped me like just race my like how I wanted to race, irrespective of like who was in the race. And yeah, it worked out really well. Yeah, that was the first time like I really felt like I could compete on an international level.
Yeah.
It's always hard, like being in the US, we have so many fast guys, but you never know. Like you also hear like France has a lot of fast guys, like Spain has a lot of fast guys. Like
Yeah.
it's just different over there. And I mean, yeah, like I still think that like competition wise, notoriety wise, like that race is still like, I mean, probably will be for a minute the biggest win of my career. I think I got like 800 French followers on Instagram after that, which is a lot.
That is a lot.
I don't get a lot of followers very quickly. So I was like, dang, like kind of popular in France. um, but yeah, it was fun. Like and then he came and won Hard Rock, and I was like, let's go. Like,
And he looked so good in the I mean, I was
wow.
there on the ground. It was incredible how good he looked.
Yeah, I saw some videos and I was like, this guy's like, he's on another level here. Yeah, super props to him. Like, I wish I didn't talk to him much. I'd love to chat with him sometime because I'm sure he's like a really cool person. I just didn't know who he was at the time. Like classic American, don't know anybody else but Americans.
I'm trying to think about the context of that race. And again, prior to 2023 being a year where you put a lot of impressive results up on the board, was this an important race for you from a confidence building standpoint? You know, considering also the 2019 JFK, COVID happening in 2020. I can't exactly remember how your season transpired in 2021, but of course that race happening in 22. So how important was that in sort of your narrative arc as an athlete?
Oh, it was huge. It was huge. I got done with Maxi and I was like, like like I was literally like I could go win CCC. Like I can win anything, you know?
And you could.
Um yeah, like it wasn't like I was like confident in the way where I was like I am going to go, like no one can beat me. But it was like, oh, like I did that, which means like I have this potential to do really well in mountain races. And like one thing I have always known of, even before I was into trail running, was, the loop around Chamonix. So it was like, or around Mont Blanc. So it was kind of like, yeah, like maybe someday I can actually like, you know, put a low score there and do well. So
Fast forwarding to 2023, I mean, obviously you've had a great year. I'm looking at some of the results here. Second at Chuckanut, seventh in a highly, highly, highly competitive CCC. It was cool to see that sort of American contingent.
yeah, I
In
think I
that
got
top 10.
sixth. I think I got
Sixth.
sixth.
Sorry, sixth.
Yeah,
Oh my
no,
gosh,
you're good.
forgive me.
You're good.
Forgive me. Forgive
I
me.
don't want to be
We'll have the AI
nitpicky, but
fix it or something. And then the win at JFK. But I think one thing that made this year interesting is you had this heart condition in the spring, and just based on Instagram, it looked like it could have been career jeopardizing. So talk about what that was and what happened there, and I probably have some follow-up questions off that.
yeah. So I'd gotten selected to race Worlds, and so I'd just gotten my kit like I don't know a week before my heart event. I actually was about to fly out like 5 days after, and yeah, woke up in the middle of the night. It was actually kind of funny. It's very very runner story. I woke up in the middle of the night and I felt like I was having a hard time breathing, and my right arm was like burning, and I was like, oh, like I must like need to roll my back out. So I got on a
Yeah.
foam roller and like rolled my back out, and then it was like, well, just in case it's a heart attack, I'll take an aspirin. Um, and so I woke up and was like, well, clearly, in hindsight, you're like, oh, you had a heart condition, you try to foam roll it out. But yeah, just like had pressure on my chest, and thankfully I work at a hospital and talked to one of the doctors once I got there, and he sent me to the ER. Yeah, pretty terrifying, like couple hours. The EKG, they hooked me up to the EKG, and it read that I was having a heart attack. So immediately, like, I wasn't even worried about my running career. I was just worried about like staying alive.
Life, yeah.
Um, and yeah, and then there was also some other diagnoses that were on the table that I definitely would just be dead right now. But thankfully, came back all right and just ended up being diagnosed with pericarditis, which is like the inflammation of the outermost layer of the heart. And it's not too terribly uncommon, but it's terrifying. So yeah, that put me out for, well, so I went to one cardiologist and he didn't want me to run for 3 months, which would have put me at August 30 for my first run, which would have been the day before CCC. I didn't really think that was a good answer. So I consulted the internet and ended up talking to some other doctors after finding some good research, and yeah, only had to take 2 weeks completely off like any cardio, and then another 2 weeks of just keeping my heart rate below 130, and then it was back to pretty normal training. I will say like one thing, I've actually had a lot of questions from people who have gotten pericarditis. It's been a little more popular. You can get pericarditis after a virus, so there's a lot of theories, or maybe they're not theories anymore, that COVID, or you can get it after any vaccine, COVID or the vaccine, can cause. It's just a misplaced immune response. Is how I think that's the
like
common.
A freak event.
Freak event. Yeah, that's my understanding. I could be a little vague. I'm sure there's more detail, but so I've had a lot of people asking about it, and it's been kind of interesting to like be able to connect with people who are also scared about what the future holds, because was potential that I had also inflammation in the muscle of the heart, which would have probably been the end of my professional career. But yeah, didn't happen. But yeah, I will say like probably something that I wish, and if anybody listening has ever had pericarditis, and like I wish was a little bit more out there, is the like anxiety that comes along with it. Like it was a month after I was training again, I kept having shortness of breath. Like I had to stop a few runs. I was running with Zach one time. I was like, dude, I have to turn around. Like I can't breathe. And then I think the reality of that was it was just anxiety. Like just I was having little panic attacks that would last like days, every few weeks, just because I think after you have a heart event, you don't really trust your body anymore. So actually, like I had those up until CCC, and once I finished CCC, I haven't had a problem. So I it's hard. Like anxiety is weird. Like I would have told everybody, "Oh, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it," but I was terrified that I would keel over in Europe somewhere. So yeah, I mean, everybody's different with pericarditis, but in athletes it has become a little more prominent since COVID, and I think if there's anybody listening that has had pericarditis, like it's terrifying, and it's okay that it's terrifying. Like I don't know.
Well, like we're talking about the engine of every single runner's body, right? Like it's perfectly natural to, especially after that event, to question everything and to lose faith or lose trust. And every single time you're remotely pushing your body, you think, are things going to shut down? Is there going to be a recurrence? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, to be honest, I'm still at like everybody who has it, we're 33% chance we're going to get it again. So at any moment, like, but I won't be as scared this time. At least I'll be like pretty sure it's not a heart attack this time.
I find it fascinating because I have a couple people in my family. It's genetic, but AFib, atrial fibrillation. Like, despite being a perfectly healthy human being otherwise, and being runners and skiers, etc., like they have AFib and they're in their 20s and their teens, and it's like, and so they live with sort of like that sort of doomsday potential thing lurking around everyone, which is crazy.
It's got to be terrifying. Yeah, you just never, like, AFib to me is even probably like more scary. It's like you never know. You could be having the time of your life, and you're like, oh, I got AFib. I have to go lay down for the rest of the day or the week. It's like, yeah, feel kudos to everybody who gets through that, because that's tough.
But you were able to have this event and then 3 or 4 months later finish 6th at CCC. Again, that to me is like a testament of I don't know, maybe you don't have as much like of that like amygdala fear-based response in running. Is it like an Alex Honnold type thing where you don't experience fear like the rest of us do?
I wish. No, I think I did have good training, but I do think for the 6 or 7 weeks. But yeah, I think that just is kind of comes back to like the way I race is like, even though I had those events, I still was like, I'm gonna give myself the best chance to go for the win at CCC.
Hmm.
I told I can't remember if it was Zach or Matt or who I was talking to the day before. I was like, I could go out there and be conservative and get top 10 at CCC, or I could go try to win the thing and probably still get top 10. And I'd be satisfied with the latter option of giving it a try. And, so I'd rather risk it, it's more fun.
I was talking about this with Brett Hornig. We had like a Long Run Archives episode maybe a month ago, and I was mentioning that, back when Worlds happened in Innsbruck, we sort of gave a lot of recognition to Eric LaPuma and Zach Miller, and those 3 guys finishing in, sort of in the middle of the pack, 4, 5, 6 at Worlds, and sort of what that meant. But I think that the American representation on the men's side at CCC this year was just as impressive. And did you sort of feel that mid-event, or were you kind of in your own orbit, running your own race?
No, I was very aware of it. Yeah. No, I think now I'm just a fan of the sport, and so I was very aware of what that was going to mean. Having 4 guys in the top 6. Like I mean, yeah, like I would have loved to be third. Like I would have loved to be the first of the 4 guys, but when I knew that, I didn't know where Dakota was once I Drew and John passed me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I knew, I was like, if we hold on to this, like this is crazy. And actually, like somebody after the race, I can't remember who it was. It's all days. Somebody from France that had, part of the race was like, we've been waiting for you Americans to finally show up and do this. And I was like, dang, like you're not wrong, but yeah, it felt good. It was cool. And I think it's only going to get better. Like, I know 3 of the 4, John, Drew, me, from CCC, like I know what we're all doing in training, and we're all just like so early on, and like I think what all of us can do in the sport. So yeah, I think the US like internationally is gonna, I mean, we're already there. I think it's just gonna get even deeper until somebody stops us, to be honest.
How much more runway do you think you have? Like you said, you feel like you're still early in your process and there's still many years. Like how long do you think that runway is, and how far away from your potential do you think you are, if you had to guess?
I don't know, it's hard. Like I've never ran 100 miles. So I feel like I have that step to go, for me personally. Like, but I think I'd like to think I have a lot of potential, and still, whether that's true or not, it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm still gonna go out every day, train like I have that potential, and race like I have that potential. And if it works out, freaking amazing. If it doesn't, I had a lot of fun. So, yeah, I'd like to think I could win big international races at some point. If I don't, I'm still gonna go try. I don't know. It's fun. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to think I have a big, quite a ways to go.
This is kind of a weird question, but I'm just like looking at CCC, looking at UTMB, looking at Western this year, and I'm sort of like imagining what the very cream of the crop is, at least on the men's side, on the American scene. From Western, Anthony, Tyler, yourself, Drew, Dakota, John Ray at CCC, Jim and Zach at UTMB. Do you feel at this point in time like you sort of belong in that cohort of like the very A tier on the American scene? And I guess to what extent are you thinking about that and aware of sort of like your standing on that like totem pole of top athletes?
Yeah. I mean, I probably think about it more than I should. Yeah, like I'm not gonna say like I don't think about that actually. I think about that a lot. Like I said, I think earlier, like I go to races and think of them as competitions between people. And so I'm also aware of like maybe where I would stack up against the Americans right now. And to be fair, like I think the American contingent, like, you could maybe say Jim is a step above or Zach is a step above, but I think there's a huge all those names you listed, it's like, and I think it's the way the sport should be and the way it'll be interesting is like on any given day, each one of us can beat the rest.
Yeah.
Like on any given day, like Drew can crush me, and then 2 months later I'll have him. It's like it just is like, and we talk about that a lot, me and Drew, and you know we're like on any given day, it's like one of us can win or beat the other. It's just like who has the day, or maybe who had the better build, or like what's going on like in life. So, which I think is like what the sport needs, like to be interesting. It's like I don't ever want to see the sport get to like maybe where it has been in the past, where it's like there's three people show up and that's going to be the podium.
Yeah.
Like now I think like if all the best Americans were, if there was like a national championship right now, like, which would be sweet. Like if there was like a national trail championship and all the American men showed up, like it would be a really good race. And I think on any given day, like I could win, or Drew could win, or John could win, or Dakota could win. Like it's just like I would hate to bet on it. You probably like you could bet on it and you probably lose. Like some it's up in the air, I think.
Based on how things have gone the last 4 years and the point that you've gotten to, in your experience, like kind of forecasting the next few years, how invested are you going to need to be from like a training standpoint, but also an overall lifestyle standpoint, either to sort of maintain where you're at or to get even better?
Oh, I mean, I think, yeah, this is yeah, I think that to be at the top of any sport, any global sport, including trail running, um, you have to be, it's got to be like a lifestyle. Like I think it has to be, it maybe doesn't have to be, but it's optimized if it is like your full, like what you do, every day for a living. I think that, yeah, like if I were to want to go win UTMB in the next 3 years, like maybe I could do that while having a full-time job and the same commitment level I am now. But I do think it is incredibly difficult, not impossible, incredibly difficult to not be fully committed in living a professional athlete lifestyle and beat guys who are able to do that. And that's just where the sport is right now. Like the sport right now is you have a few people who their job is entirely trail running. That's what they do. They take nap. I don't know if they do, but they have the ability to take naps every day. They can go get massages and treatment. And then you have like maybe the working class that's actually like really close behind them, of people who have full-time jobs and don't nap. But
I like
yeah,
that designation, the working class.
yeah. Really blue collar over here. Uh,
Um, you were saying after 2019 JFK, like literally that night, you got a call from whatever North Face headquarters and things did change
yeah,
a fair bit.
yeah,
I felt like this year you put out a lot of great output at some pretty like national class and world class races. Are things changing again? Like, are you feeling like around you there's more interest or more investment, or are you kind of like satisfying what you were expected to do? I don't know where I'm going with this, but
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, probably can't speak to too much of what's going on air, because
Okay.
But I do think that, yeah, I feel like I have had a good maybe year for, if I were working in marketing, for a brand, like my year was acceptable, I think, as far as output and results and maybe content that was created. But yeah, I think JFK. The short answer is I think JFK really um, helped me out a lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm actually supposed to talk with my agent after this, so I don't know. Uh, uh, but
Right on.
yeah, um, still working things out. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, like I'm super like grateful for
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and happy with my current setup. So
Maybe last topic for you here. What's next for you? Like you said, maybe in the next 3 years you could win UTMB. Um, have you ever taken any runs at Western States before, like golden ticket attempts, stuff like
no,
that?
no, I've done Golden Ticket Race, Black Cannon twice. And neither time I was planning to take a golden ticket. I just wanted to race a competitive race.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't have gotten a golden ticket anyway. Dropped out, and then I think I got sixth the next time. I've never taken a run at Western States. To be honest, that race scares me a lot. Um, it's everything that I'm bad at. It's hot. It's sunny. It's uh, like a lot of, which I'm decent at running, but it's a lot of running. Um, yeah, it's heat management. It's on top of the little things,
Mm.
which historically I'm not very good at. The little things in races, I'd rather grab a handful of chips and keep running. So that really scares me a lot. I would like to give it a go. It's hard. It's hard. And to be honest, the thing about Western States that has kept me from maybe putting it forefront is the time of year.
Yeah.
It's in June. It kind of like I love training in July here in Colorado. Up high is perfect. Cycling's good in July. Like everything's good in July and August. And I've witnessed people, Drew or Adam who go do Western States. They're pretty cooked for July and August. So, which is a little, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I do want to give a run at Western States, and I'm not saying it's not going to be anytime soon. But I don't know. I think right now the only race I'm signed up for next year is Trans Gran Canaria.
Nice.
It's a North Face race, and it's actually I'm going to sell this race to anybody
Please.
who
Please.
I've never done it. It's probably wonderful. It's probably hard to get to. It's on an island somewhere, but it's the only race you can do that's in between 100, like almost exactly in between CCC and UTMB as far as like length and vert. So it's like you don't have to make the jump from 100K to 100 mile. You can do 120K and see if you're any good at it. So
Mm.
that's like I'm excited because it'll be the furthest I've ran, and I don't have to commit to 100 miles.
And I think that it's part of is it part of the new World Trail Majors circuit too?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so, which is I'm still not 100% sure how all that works.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty cool.
How about Chamonix? Will you be in Chamonix next August, do you think?
For sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As much as, UTMB as a brand has irritated people, I think the loop around Mont Blanc or the half loop around Mont Blanc is so compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll be there.
On that note, it's so funny. I've obviously been following avidly sort of the whirlwind around Whistler and UTMB and all this stuff. And I went on a run earlier this morning with a couple people who their ultra sign up lists are like 10 or 15 years long. They're avid participants in the sport, but I started to get into that conversation, and their 3 questions back were, who is Gary Robbins? What is UTMB? And since when has Ironman gotten involved in trail? And it made me realize that like I live in a bubble inside a bubble inside a bubble, and 99% of the world has no idea what's going on there.
Yeah. No, totally. It's like the world majors. I'm like, great idea. I don't, somebody explain it to me if I'm getting this all wrong. But does anybody besides the pros care that it's a world made? Like, is 98% of the people signing up for the race are probably still going to go because it's at a cool location, or like,
Right.
they've heard of it. I don't know if like, yeah. So it's yeah, we're definitely in a bubble. Like, shoot, I'll go to work, like, if I work with somebody new, like, I don't even begin to try to explain what I do to people. Like, I don't know. I was telling my wife the other day, it's like I either undersell what I do by being like, oh yeah, I just jog for a long time, or it sounds like I'm overselling it by being like, yeah, I won this race. Like, so it's so hard to like explain the sport sometimes to people. You have to show them, I think. Which is like why I think the coverage of UTMB is so important, as I think
Yep.
it shows people what it's all about instead of just kind of explaining something that seems hard to grasp.
Well, Seth, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Huge congrats on the JFK win. Obviously excited to watch 2024 sort of evolve for you. And yeah, thanks for going on in depth on everything and just being a great guest. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, and thanks for everything you guys do for the sport. It's nice having like somebody inside the pro scene of the sport doing podcasts and stuff, because it's like I feel heard. Like collectively, I think this is how us Boulder boys talk about it. Like we feel heard and seen as like a pro group. So no, thank you so much.